Welcome to episode 53 of the Sean McGuinness podcast. That means we've done a whole year of this. So, what started in lockdown, one of the positives of lockdown gave me the time to step back and think and said, you know what, all I do is listen to educational podcasts all day. So it will be a pleasure to put out my own and hopefully my own style of doing it, breaking it down a little bit more, because a lot of the stuff that's out there in regards fitness, health, fat loss, in my opinion, is catered more towards trainers or people in that industry. And when people who may not be in the industry but want to learn, if you start listening to stuff that's too complicated and using too many big words and you can't follow, you're just going to zone out. It was like me when I used to do statistics in university. It was like someone's talking a different language. So obviously my brain just switches off. So yes, hopefully I have done that and helped, even if, as I always say, if I help one person avoid doing kind of the wrong thing and help them and guide them along the way, that would be my job done. So yes, thank you to all the listeners, all three of yous, including my mum. I really appreciate it. And here's to another year, sláinte. So in today's episode, I want to go a little different. At the start, we've talked about how to set up your nutrition plan in regards to fat loss, health, etc. So if you haven't already, go and listen to that. And like I always say, the majority of your results, say 80%, if you're judging it in terms of fat loss, will be gotten if you just control your calories and get enough protein. Okay? They say calories dictate whether you lose weight or not. So if you're not losing weight, you're not in a calorie deficit. Now, that's why you lose fat. Obviously, how you lose fat is more to do with your behaviors and stuff like we talk about. The calorie deficit dictates whether you lose fat, gain fat, or stay the same. Your macronutrients, so whether you get enough protein, that will dictate how you look after you lose the weight. So if you get enough protein, you're going to maintain your muscle and you're going to look a bit more toned. If you are on a low protein diet with a calorie deficit, in most cases, you're not going to look as good because you're going to lose a lot of muscle and you're going to look more saggy and flabby, etc. Now, in my opinion, the rest of the stuff on top of that, we can look at micronutrients and lifestyle and then supplements if needs be. That can dictate on top of that how you feel, okay? Because yes, you can hit your calorie deficit, but if you're filling that with your food and your lifestyle's bad, you might look good, but you won't feel good. So what we're going to look at today is, I'm always in two minds about saying hacks, but it's the easiest way to describe it. That especially ones I use with clients to help them feel good, help them perform throughout the whole day, optimize the whole life. Okay, improve the quality of someone's life, which is what we're trying to do. However, I always say if you haven't got the basics down in regards like balanced meals and getting enough protein, focus on that first. Don't skip ahead and go straight to these things. These are like the 1%ers. Now, although when you add them up, that can make up a large percent of your plan, just make sure you have the basics in line first. Once you have that and you can hit your calorie deficit well and you can get enough protein and those habits are unconscious, then we can look at these more kind of advanced methods that are really helpful. Lifestyle stuff as well, it's going to help you feel good. We're going to look at optimizing your whole day. And in turn, it's always like a vice versa relationship. It's going to feed back into how you can sustain your calorie deficit, because if someone's very stressed and they're trying to maintain a calorie deficit, that increases the likelihood of you're going to fail. Versus if you're in a calorie deficit and you're using these lifestyle hacks to de-stress, that's going to like keep your appetite down, keep your energy up. So you're going to maintain that for longer and get better results. So that's why we always look at, it's always a holistic view with this. It's never as simple as do one thing. They always feed back in your hunger signals, appetite signals. It's always a domino effect of the body. So first what we're going to do, and like I said, these are stuff I use with clients. There's lots and lots and lots of information out there. What I've done is to adapt the most significant stuff and for which people find it easy to adopt to their lifestyle. People with real jobs, real responsibilities. This isn't someone, inspo person living in Bali telling you how to live your life, when majority of the time that person is more successful than you in every aspect except for fitness, and don't understand your lifestyle. So the majority of people I deal with, whether it's face to face or online, they have a lot going on. So these are the most important or biggest bang for your buck kind of hacks we can look at. So we're going to start in the morning. Oh, and I also must prerequisite in this in saying that before we do this kind of lifestyle interventions, if you're looking at health optimization, I would always send someone to like a functional GP, or maybe a nutritionist, sometimes naturopath, but more naturopathic GPs and naturopathic doctors that look at lifestyle nutrition. And you would get obviously your bloods done, make sure you're not deficient in anything, your vitamin minerals are all adequate. You could get hormonal testing, and if you had digestive issues or wanted to make sure your digestion is optimal, you could look at stool testing as well to look at like your microbiome, making sure you have all the probiotics and stuff that you need for optimal digestion function. This is on top of this again. Okay, so just must say that. So we'll start in the morning. What we're trying to do in the morning, ideally, we've all heard of cortisol probably at this stage. This is your stress hormone. We have what's called a cortisol curve. And what's supposed to happen, cortisol awakening response. What's supposed to happen is your cortisol is supposed to peak in the morning. I think it peaks between 6 and 9 a.m. So that's the thing that wakes us up in the morning. So if you look and say, okay, I'm always waking up dead in the morning, I'm always tired, I can never wake up, something's off. That's not normal. Although it might be common, it's not normal. So what we're trying to do is get your cortisol awakening response back into order as best we can with lifestyle interventions. So what we want to do is do stuff to peak that. Someone might wake up, okay, if you're fortunate to be in a country at the moment where the sun's shining when you wake up, I always try to get somebody to get some kind of sunlight on their eyes within the first 20 to 30 minutes of waking up. Light in general is one of the biggest things that gives information to your body about your circadian rhythm and in your cortisol awakening response. It gives you information about what hormones to release, what neurotransmitters, what chemicals to release. So it sounds so easy, but when that sunlight hits your photons, that telling your body this is the time, this is what you need to do, and also then that sets your body and brain later on in the day to actually wind down, and then it's obviously going to help you go to sleep. It's releasing the right hormones, more cortisol in the morning, and then more in the evening, lower cortisol and higher melatonin, more of your sleep hormones. So sunlight within the first 20 to 30 minutes if possible. Sometimes I'm not fortunate, I might have a 6 a.m. session. I might do a few things, and this might tie into people, say, at the moment in the UK and Ireland, majority of the time where it's a bit darker. You might have some kind of artificial light you might use to wake yourself up. You can get artificial light alarm clocks. I've had clients use to good effect. So instead of like your alarm clock buzzing off and waking you up in a bit of a spin, you could use some alarm clocks that's the artificial light slowly starts to brighten, and that wakes you up. Your body's so sensitive to light. I think they've done studies before, and this will relate into the sleep component, where someone's asleep and you get one of those lasers you used to have in school, those laser pens, the ones they tell you to not shine in each other's eyes, but everyone used to do it because you're kids and we're oblivious. They did research, someone's asleep, pitch dark room, and I think they shine that little red light or little light on someone's foot, and that was enough to wake them up. So your body's so sensitive to light. So we want some kind of artificial UV in the morning if possible. So I might use that if I have to get up real early, and then when I might finish my session, I might go over and just get some sunlight outside quickly as well again. If you're in a country where it's cloudy and you don't have the artificial light yet, you still get out. Even though it's cloudy, you mightn't think there's a lot of sunshine in there, but that lux, which is a measure of the light, will still get through. So you just probably need a bit more time out there. So that's the first most important thing. Then what we can also use are other things that basically spike our stress hormones, which is what we want in a controlled fashion. That's the things that wakes us up a little bit more. So for example, adrenaline. We've all heard of adrenaline, noradrenaline. These are like a first stress response hormones and chemicals. So what people may do, and some may be more receptive to this than others, is get some kind of cold water on you in the morning. Whether you're brave enough to do, I know it's getting popular in Ireland to do cold water swims. Probably wouldn't be brave enough. I think when I did that in Ireland, I thought I was going to die. Some people are doing that. I do cold showers now. Okay. You can do a little bit cold, so in between warm and cold. Or you could do a warm shower and finish on cold water. Or you could just do cold water on your face, is what sometimes when I'm in a rush, I'll do that as well. Cold water just gives you a kind of a little hit of adrenaline, get those stress hormones up, and wakes you up a little bit more. So we can look at temperature in regards to that. In the evening, which I'm going to talk about, we might use warmer showers to cool us, to help us wind down. But in the morning, to get that adrenaline going, we can use some cold water in some kind of fashion regards that. We could use some kind of activity. Again, what we're trying to do is get those stress hormones going. Some people love training in the morning, which is great because that works with your circadian rhythm, circadian clock. Some kind of activity that gets your heart rate above 120 if possible. It could be a little brisk walk around the block when you get your coffee. It could be a few sets of push-ups, a few sets of squats. Something to raise your heart rate, get that blood flow going, and get a little bit of stress hormone release again to wake you up. Like I said, coffee, obviously caffeine for those that drink it. And if you don't, in my eyes, you're a psychopath. Everyone's a bit more sensitive to caffeine than others. Some break it down quicker, some slower. So caffeine, obviously in a controlled fashion, just gets that cortisol up as well. Okay, it gets those stress hormones going, gets the heart rate going, as we all know. For people that are a bit more sensitive to caffeine, but you may want to smash a few coffees in the morning, what you can use L-theanine. It's an amino acid that is kind of a precursor to GABA. And that helps levels you out. It takes away those little coffee jitters if needs be. There's some good, I've seen some good supplements now that use this. So they have caffeine in it, morning supplements, and they also have L-theanine in it as well as a way to stop that. In regards food, everyone will differ to an extent, but if somebody's going to eat breakfast, and I know some people may fast, again, it's hard to say individually because fat loss, you want to set up your day according to your lifestyle as well. That will mean adherence. But for those that are going to eat breakfast, so you want to base it around a nice protein source. Now, it may sound crazy, but I have had people eat a normal protein breakfast in the morning. So they might have like chicken and salad or meat and salad, whatever it is. You may have eggs, is an easier one to do. Everyone will differ with this, but what I've found, and I know for myself, is when I have more of a carb heavy breakfast, I feel a bit sleepier after. I don't feel it as awake. For some people it's a blood sugar issue, but also what happens, and we'll talk about this in the evening meal where I like to put carbohydrates, it can release serotonin, which is kind of get that sleepy, more relaxed feeling. Versus some kind of proteins, especially more red meat, that have tyrosine in it, that gives you more of a dopamine hit, that motivation and drive. Okay, so just look when you eat what breakfasts give you make you feel better after. You're always trying to look at that as well. And that are my main components for that in regards to the morning. So some cold water, sunlight, again, caffeine's, if you're going to drink it, you might use that theanine. Some kind of protein-rich breakfast. Some kind of activity if you can, get the heart rate raised. And when we look back at chemicals, and I'm not going to get too into it because I'm not a neuroscience scientist. There's a guy I follow, Dr. Andrew Huberman, Huberman. He's amazing on this stuff. In the morning, what we're looking for is to get that dopamine up. That's like your motivation. So adrenaline, dopamine, kind of cortisol. They're the things that drive you towards the day. Okay. He has a thing where he looks at one way we get dopamine is when we tick things off our list. Okay, and your brain probably wants a dopamine hit in the morning. So if you're set up for your day and you may write your to-do list of what you need to do, Jocko Willink and people talk about simply making your bed. It's like the first thing you'll do. It's on your to-do list, and that gives you a little dopamine hit. And this is verified. Andrew Huberman verified this as well, that you get a little dopamine hit. If you're not doing something, say, goal-oriented, dopamine, one of the aspects of it is goal-oriented. And when you tick off a goal on your list or you have to do, you get a nice dopamine hit that sets you up for the day. If you're not doing something like that in the morning, and I can definitely attest to this, your brain will try to find dopamine through other ways. So obviously we have our phone now. You may log on to social media and get a dopamine hit that way through likes. But that is just going to leave your brain frazzled for the day. You're not really going to be in tune with the goals you have to hit that day or what's on your to-do list, because you look on other people's lives and you're going to be all over the place. And I said, I'm as guilty as anyone for this, and it's something I'm trying to work on lately. Obviously, control your environment. You may not have your phone near you as well, etc. You may avoid watching the news in the morning as another thing. I think I read something where actually reading the news, if you want to get updated, read the news, because when you watch it, what they're trying to do is, everyone has ADHD these days. Everyone's concentration's all over the place. So they're using very harsh things on the screen, harsh colors to get you to watch it, okay? And it's going to frazzle your brain a little more and may put you off the rest of the day. Okay, so that's the morning. We want a cortisol, adrenaline kind of up. Now, when someone goes to work, cortisol is good when we want to release it, but what we don't want is elevated stress cortisol throughout the whole day. It should be like a peak and then it should drop towards the middle and second half of the day. We don't want to consistently raise, especially for weeks and months, because that's going to lead to numerous things like we talked about before with high cortisol. Some little aspects. It's going to increase your rate of emotional eating and food eating. You're going to binge out. Your cravings, your sugar cravings are going to go up. Your energy will go down. Your immune system will go down. You'll get sick. You won't be as creative. You can literally every aspect of what we want for fat loss is going to do the opposite of that. So ideally cortisol is supposed to spike, but then it should progressively get lower. Or if throughout the day your cortisol does spike, it should be an acute one. So you should get stressed, and then ideally you should be able to bring it back down, back into like what's called parasympathetic, so your rest and recovery zone. Okay. So what we're trying to do when I'm with clients is, I know they have stressful days. When I can, I'm trying to bring that cortisol back down into a controlled fashion so they can get into, like I said, that rest recovery zone where your cravings, your appetite, everything's going to be good again. And obviously you can recover from training properly. So we can use a number of things. I get my clients to go out as much as they can, get fresh air, get sunlight, get in nature if you have parks around you as much as you can. Device free if possible, because even the act of having that on you is not allowing your brain to switch off when we should be. So like I said, one of the problems is chronically elevated cortisol, and with that becomes your brain's always on. Okay, and this is made worse, and again, I'm putting myself into this bracket, when we do have our breaks, that you're still probably scrolling and looking for information. Your brain's never getting a rest. Your brain needs rest, and I think the same way there's a circadian rhythm, there's like a learning cycle rhythm. I forget the name at the moment. The maximum is like you have 90 minutes learning. After that, your attention drops off big time. So people go 90 minutes and then they may go 20 minutes or 30 minutes off. When your brain is off away from learning information, it's not just not doing it. It's actually subconscious works and all these areas of the brain work to assemble and put the information together and create deeper connections within that information. So you learn something, you can tie to what you already know, and you're constantly building all these connections and neurons and neural connections within your brain. So you need that time off. You need that daydreaming time. You need that time to let your brain switch off. So when you're doing these relaxing activities, do them without scrolling on Instagram and without looking at the news and without texting all these people. Just leave your device at home or in the office if you can. They've seen getting out in nature 3 times per week lowers your cortisol by like 10% over the week, which is a big deal. With this, when someone's getting out, and that's why like these devices are great, the pedometers and anything that looks at your steps, because it kind of, you can use that as a metric to get out and get your steps in and get sunlight, fresh air, kill a few birds with one stone. When I have clients do this, I've also been playing around with other ways of increasing their ability to get into that rest and recovery zone. Ideally, most people should be nasal breathing through your nose the majority of the day. When we breathe through our nose, it does a number of phenomenal things. It's connected to your diaphragm, so it signals your diaphragm and your vagus nerve, and that first of all allows you to get better oxygenated air in, nitric oxide, which opens blood vessels and arteries up to allow you to get higher rates of blood flow, lower your blood pressure. So that gets you into that rest and recovery zone, breathing through your nose. And if someone is stressed, the natural stress response is to start to breathe through their mouth and shallow breathe and breathe really into them, where the shoulders are up around their ears. That's a natural stress response. We can reverse the stress response by simply focusing on breathing. Probably see this in movies where they get the paper bag out, breathe, relax, control your breathing. So if someone's in a stress response, the breathing response is automatic, but we can get ourselves out of that by consciously focusing on breathing. So when I get someone to do these steps, I'll get them to have their tongue at the top of their mouth, close their mouth and focus on breathing through their nose. And ideally we want to train ourselves to do this the majority of the day. It may be harder to start, especially if you're not used to it, especially if you have asthma and stuff like that before, but your body will get used to that after a while. And they've even seen now, go back to listen to the episode I did with Patrick McComb where he talks all about this. There's a lot of things that tie into this, so it's kind of a deep hole, your posture and stuff. So an easy drill you can do to start off to find out what nasal breathing, getting and using your diaphragm and ribcage properly. Check out the 90-90 breathing drill. Just type into YouTube. Some good guys to do it, Carl Dobbs. Some other good guys. And that should signal how you get oxygen in and focus on that properly. Other obviously in terms of training, somebody may be training throughout the day or wherever they have time. If time is an option and you are flexible with your time, ideally I'd probably set up your training in the first half of the day, not too late, because then when we train late it can impact on your sleep and stuff as well. For most people, in regards to training, they probably only have 2 or 3 hard training sessions in them per week. See people going in to F45 and all these group sessions where they kill them, boot camps or Orange Theory, where they really kill them every day and they're putting the foot on the pedal every day. Your body's not made to do that. Not even professional athletes do that. There's what's called a polarized training system, and it's when you alternate higher training days, harder training days, with lower, easier training days. So it might be Monday is your harder day, Tuesday easier day, Wednesday harder, Thursday easier, what am I talking about? Thursday easier, And depending, you may train again Friday, if not. Going even further within that, we can look at metrics that will tell us how stressed or how recovered our body is. Because if we're really run down, we don't want to add another stress in regards really hard training on top of that, because that may be the straw that breaks the camel's back in regards you breaking down and getting sick and pushing your immune system over the edge. So what I do with people, especially ones that there's no point in me saying, oh, Mr. Jones, you're stressed, you need a day off. They need metrics. A lot of people are analytical. So you can use what's called a heart rate variability, HRV. There's some cool technology now. The Aura rings have it, Whoop bands. If you have Apple Watch like I have here, or a Garmin or Fitbit, you can get a heart rate strap that you put around just below your rib cage, and you'll measure your heart rate variability on as you wake up. It will basically give you a number of how stressed your body is. So we want a high heart rate variability. That means your body's balancing your sympathetic and parasympathetic nicely. So your body's nice and balanced, basically. If you have a low HRV, it means your body's stressed. It means you're very sympathetic. You're in that stress zone. So what we can do is then regulate our training based off that number of how stressed we are. And all professional athletes, all teams are using this technology, okay? That's why every time I log onto YouTube, the Whoop band, the Whoop didn't think of this technology. They've popularized it a bit better. They use this. On the days where heart rate variability is low, that may be your easier days. And when I say easier day, that may be more aerobic work, which is less intense on the body, but also allows active recovery. So it increases your rate of recovery and increases your body's ability to get back into that parasympathetic zone. So when people think, oh, I'm sore or I'm a bit stressed today, a bit run down, I'm going to take the day off and lie on the couch, that's not as good as actually getting in and doing low aerobic work that will increase blood flow, which will get fresh blood into the areas where you're sore, which will increase your recovery. So on those days where you're more stressed or your heart rate variability is low, or the night before you haven't slept, or the kids have kept you up, and that's why when someone comes in to train me, I'll always ask them, how was your sleep last night? How are you feeling? How's your energy? How's your motivation to train? These are other metrics which we can look at on how stressed we are. Are you more irritable? Some people are always irritable, but you get the point. That's other ways to see that. On the days where you're stressed, it could be aerobic work where you're doing some kind of activity that's pretty low impact on your joints, where you're keeping your heart rate in that 120 to say 150 zone. Which something where it measures your heart rate is very handy. You may mix in some mobility work, some breathing at the end, some stretching. You may finish with some sauna. You may get a massage on that day if needs be. Some kind of active recovery where you're allowing your body to recover properly. On the days where your heart rate variability is high or you feel good, that can be your harder training days, your weight training, your interval training days, and you can alternate like that. When it comes to training, another thing what I find with busy people is a lot of time they'll come in, training is a stress, okay, so we're trying to actively get our stress hormones up. But big mistake people make is they leave them elevated and they keep going on with their day, and they never get back into that rest and recovery zone to allow them to recover. Because you can train as hard as you want, but when you rest and recover, that's where you get the fruits of your labor. So before you leave your leave the gym, take 5-10 minutes, do some breathing, do some stretching, get your heart rate down to around 100 or under if possible, and then go have your shower. Okay, you'll feel much better for it. Versus I see people, again, you may go to a group session, they may kill you on the days you're stressed. This may be before work. Then you may get a coffee, and then you may go into your meeting, and your cortisol's chronically elevated the whole day, and you're going to burn yourself out. Throughout the day, we'll also look at other stress reducing activities when you can. Like I talked about, like I mentioned, massages, maybe some kind of guided meditation when you can, device free time, turn off your notification with your phone, WhatsApp, turn your notifications off WhatsApp. I got this from my own Lacey. You know, when you read a message and you see the two blue ticks, that's going to be on your mind the whole day. You haven't replied to that person. So again, it's another thing that you're not giving your brain a break. If you have time, you may go into the park, or you may work in Google where this is already there, and you may do like a little 20-minute nap, 20 to 30 minute nap. You don't even have to sleep. It could be what's called non-sleep rest. There's an acronym for it. So it's non-sleep rest, something like that. It will come to me after. And that's enough just to bring that down, allow your brain and body to reset, and then go again. From a food perspective, again, for lunch, we want some kind of protein, some kind of veg, and some nice healthy fats in there, and then some probably healthy carbs in most places, depending. So it could be chicken, salad. They may have a bit of olive oil on the salad, and then some brown rice. Nice balanced meal to get you in there. When it comes to eating, don't eat at your desk. Don't eat when you watch YouTube. Don't eat when you're distracted. We talk about calorie deficits and stuff, but when you eat when you're distracted, you actually overconsume 20% more calories, they've seen, because you're not in tune with your appetite signals and your fullness signals. If you can, what's supposed to happen before we eat on that topic is you're supposed to salivate before you eat. That's the first step to breaking down your food and allowing you to assimilate and get all the nutrients into your body and break it down properly. If you're just throwing your lunchbox in the microwave and then without even thinking you're going to try wolf it down, your body's not in a proper position to be able to break that food down. So after, you might be bloated, you might be lethargic because you haven't broken it down properly. There's not enough enzymes around in your mouth and your stomach to be able to do it. So you might take a few minutes, get those enzymes salivating. Don't eat when you're distracted. Put your fork and knife down every few chews to make sure you're actually chewing your food properly. Another way, if someone wolfs their food down, their appetite signals take longer to catch up, take longer to get to the brain, and then it's another way you can overconsume calories. Non-sleep deep rest, that's what I was talking about. So I think they've studied this with learning as well, where they do 90-minute cycles and then they do 20 minutes non-sleep deep rest, and actually increases the rate of assimilating that information, putting it together. And any other ways that will help you bring down your stress throughout the whole day. Float tanks, as massages, like I said, could be like the Theragun, whatever you need to be to just relax, and then in terms of overall health and fitness, increase that blood flow, increase that recovery, and increase you in that rest and recovery zone. Okay, that's some basics throughout the day. And then pre-bed, what we want to look at, so in the evening time, because what we want ideally is someone who's very dopamine driven, goal oriented throughout most of the day, but to be able to come home and switch that off and switch into more serotonin kind of induced state where you're kind of grateful, you're happy, you're winding down. We see people on both ends of the spectrum where if someone's so dopamine dominant all day, they can never switch themselves off. So although they might be CEO of a company, everything else is a wreck in their lives because they're never grateful for what they have, or they're never stopping and being able to switch into that point where they feel grateful and happy with other stuff. Whereas we can also see someone who stays in that serotonin stage all day. We can look at, say, like hippies, whatever it is, and they don't achieve any goals, but they're just happy and they're just there and doing the thing. So ideally we want a mix of both. Someone said in regards work-life balance is be able to hit the dopamine system hard, and then to be able to pull back and go into more your serotonin system, where you work hard and then you can come home and you're grateful for what you have from that hard work. So it's always about being able to switch between both systems. So in the evening we have Siri is always talking. I swear Siri's listening to what I say and reporting back to Apple. Anyway, we want more serotonin producing activities. So connection, you might have kids, you might have a pet, you might have a partner, friends, some kind of stuff that can increase your serotonin and increase those good chemicals. You may watch a comedy at night, something lighthearted. Ideally, and I made this mistake as well, where you watch like gangster movies or crime movies, or I don't go as far as all these like CSI, let's find out who killed, murder mystery. All that stuff's increasing your cortisol, your dopamine back up, which is not what you want them like. You want them to be low. You want cortisol to be low because cortisol and melatonin have an inverse relationship. Melatonin is your sleep hormone. So when cortisol is down, melatonin's up, and obviously vice versa. So we want cortisol nice and low at night to be able to get into a proper sleep. In the evening, if you can, start to create a dark environment. For some people that may need to get on the laptop, you may install F.lux, which just takes the blue light away from the screen. Some people use blue blockers because that blue light stimulates to your eyes, that tells you it's the daytime. So it's obviously not what we want. They've even seen light, like we mentioned, light exposure. If we have light at night, and I think they study this with people in hospitals, when there's light through the day and all at night, they get what's called, where I made note over here, light-induced depression or light-induced psychosis. It was one of those. So again, we're trying to give our body the right signals at night. So you need to give it dark environments. Another thing I got from Huberman is if you're going to have lights, keep them lower physically in the room, because your brain's more sensitive to light coming from above for obvious reasons. Other ways which I'll help my clients get into a relaxed state to help them sleep, you may use a warm shower before bed. At the same time, you may set the temperature in your room to about 18 degrees, I think is optimal. We want that cold. Again, evolutionary, it relates back to if we're going to sleep at night, naturally it's going to be colder. All these evolutionary signals that tell our body what's going on. So you can have a warm shower. When you step out of the shower, your core temperature is going to drop to cool yourself down. And then when you go into your room, it's going to be a nice good temperature to get you into that deep sleep. I think he did say when you let your core temperature drop, you might just still put socks on. I still sleep in pajamas. I hate being too cold. That gives me opposite effect. So keep some socks on to keep that core temperature somewhat warm. That's very useful. Also, in regards to supplements, you may use some kind of magnesium glycinate. It simulates the neurotransmitters involved in you relaxing, GABA, which is like, what can we say, the opposite of anxiety. So to get you in that relaxed state, it relaxes your nervous system down. But a lot of people are deficient in magnesium. Actually gave a client magnesium there for the first time, and obviously consult a practitioner before you do any of this stuff. This is just guidelines, it's not prescription. They say if you take magnesium and you're highly, say, deficient or highly inadequate, you get into a mad deep sleep. And this girl said she had the best sleep in years, woke up refreshed, and she's just having the sleeps of her life. So That could be an option as well. In regards to the evening meal, relating back to getting our body into more serotonin, which serotonin is then the precursor for melatonin, a sleep hormone, so it's all connected. Some people prefer to have more carbohydrates in the evening. Again, carbohydrates, they have tryptophan in it, which is the precursor for serotonin, which goes into melatonin. You don't need to know the science, it's just this is the rationale behind it. That gives you more of that sleepy feeling, which is good before bed. Not always good at the start of the day, but it's good before bed because it gets you into that. So maybe your higher carbohydrate meal might relate to your evening meal. And that makes sense for a lot of people because they prefer to have more carbohydrates in the evening when they're with their family or when they're out for their business meals, whatever it is. In regards to protein, you may have easier meats to digest, so the whiter meats. Again, whiter meats, especially turkey, contain more tryptophan in it, which leads into serotonin and melatonin to help you sleep as well. So maybe your darker meats, if you're going to have it in the early in the day, whereas your white ones towards the end of the day. Obviously, when you sleep, very dark environment. We talked about how sensitive your body and brain are to light. So absolutely no light in it as possible. As it comes back to warm water and also magnesium, a great way to do that and relax at the same time is if you have a bath, put some Epsom salts in it. Then the last thing, if you are taking sleeping tablets, obviously consult a practitioner, but it's one of the dumbest things I've seen. Sleeping tablets, you don't get any restorative sleep in it at all. It's just knocking you out, and it's just a band-aid approach for what's going on in your lifestyle. So next time your car light is flashing or your car is buzzing because the engine's going to blow up, don't just turn the radio up a bit louder to drown the sound out. Deal with the problem. Same with this. And go back to things we looked at earlier in the day, because that's going to dictate your circadian rhythm and how well you sleep that night. Not really a big fan of sleep tracking, to be honest, for most people, because sometimes just the thought of it puts people off. Like thinking about trying to sleep can have the opposite effect. I can't remember who said it, but they said there's a few things. If you think too much about, your performance gets worse. Golf, sex, and sleep. So, yes, take that into account as well. Okay, and obviously with that, outside of what we talked about, your calorie deficit, you want to look at these metrics as ways of how you're going in your performance and quality of your life. Look at your energy in the morning. Are you waking up refreshed? Are you waking up, and it doesn't have to be straight away. There's chronotypes where some people are more evening people, morning people. The evening people, if you are one, it may be an hour or two later your cortisol spikes, and then the evening, the opposite effect. So you just don't want to be waking up absolute dead, needing coffee. You want coffee, but you don't need it. So look at your energy in the morning, look at your energy throughout the whole day. That ties back into the food that we eat as well. Do your own experiments. What do you feel better after? For some people, if you want to go a little bit step further, you're a bit more of a nerd when it comes to that, you can actually use glucose monitor. So there's a thing you can buy where it pricks into your arm, and I think you need a practitioner to put it in. And then that connects to the app on your phone. So when you eat something, you can see the glucose response from your body, and that will dictate your energy function, because we don't want too big of a glucose blood sugar spike. So then you can look at foods that keep that level throughout the whole day, which will tie back into your energy as well. Look at your sleep. Look at the quality of your sleep. You should be dreaming a lot of time, which means you're in that REM sleep, that restorative sleep, which you don't get with sleeping tablets. And when you're in your restorative sleep, your body's going around clearing bad cells out. It's clearing your brain out, the fluid, and all this kind of stuff. It's killing. When we look at cancer, your body's going to kill all those cancerous cells at night. So if you just keep taking sleeping tablets, you're not going to get any of that effect. And you can obviously, worst case scenario with that is not ideal at all. Look at your libido, which is one of the best signs of your overall health. In saying that, if someone's in a deep into a calorie deficit, it's the first thing that goes, which makes sense from evolutionary reasons, because if you are starving yourself your body's not in a good position to actually produce or make a baby. Look at energy, look at your focus and concentration. When we're highly stressed, chronically stressed throughout the whole day, one of the first aspects to go is the activity in the prefrontal cortex, that's the front of your brain, and you switch back to more your reptilian brain. And your prefrontal cortex is involved in your concentration, discipline, all those kind of higher order type things that separate us from the monkeys. Although some people you may see very lot of similarities, especially if you look on social media in today's world. So look at your focus and concentration, look at your digestion, look at your stools, which means your shit. There's a chart, Bristol stool chart, so go have a look at that. I think you should be around 5. And that there used to be a girl on TV, Gillian, she used to go around looking at people. Everyone used to think she's mad, but actually from looking at this, it's a very good way to indicate someone's health. Going even a little bit further, on top of that, if you look at someone's health, you can then tie in the social aspects and purpose and stuff as well. But that's maybe not for my discussion and not for this podcast, something for you to also be aware of. Outside of doing your workouts, hitting your calories and posting on social media, these are other stuff that would dictate your overall happiness as well. I myself are doing a little experiment where I'm actually posting on social media less, because I could feel my brain getting addicted to it, especially when before I was going to even pick up my phone, or when I was getting onto it, I was getting that pre-dopamine hit. Like that feeling on Christmas Day where your dopamine's peaking first. And a lot of people addicted to drugs will get that when they're on the way to get drugs. You get the dopamine hit before. That's when you know you're in deep. So I was getting that, so I need to pull back. And all these things will tie into your overall happiness as well, because from my perspective, your brain shouldn't be releasing dopamine at all times throughout this, because if that's the case, there's going to be a seesaw effect as well. So yeah, that's just what I'm trying to do. So if you don't see me post on as much, that is the reason, trying to keep my brain balanced. So there you go. Hopefully that helped. Now, obviously, you don't go and just do everything I said in the one go in one day. When we're looking at putting these things into practice, it comes back to the behavior change aspect of life. So you may have one habit you do in the morning, and what you can do is then habit stack on top of that. So after my habit I'm going to have a cold shower, I'm going to do this, whatever it is. And then as you go, start to stack those habits on top of each other. Don't just try to change things in one go. Yes, okay, there we go. Episode 53 in the books. Please give me your feedback on that episode. Hopefully I didn't ramble too much, but I just wanted to get it all in there. Please rate and review. Give me a feedback. Message me, sean@liveonperformance.com. Message me on Instagram, and when I see it, I'll get back to you. What you found, how you found that, what else you want me to cover, and in iTunes, spread the good word as always. Please rate and review. And yes, there we go. Bowing out. Hope you have a good day, evening, or morning, wherever you are in the world, and I will talk to you all in episode 54.